So, going into my internship, I knew that one thing that I really, really wanted to focus on was relationships and forging strong relationships with the kids that I would be getting to know and meeting over the course of my 10 weeks in Phoenix Park School. Um, and obviously, you can't form strong relationships without good communication. And I ended up realizing just how important good communication is. And I felt like out of the five competencies, that was one of the ones that I was probably the strongest at. When it came to communication, growing up, I'd always been very good at, communicating what I felt and being able to get my point across clearly and calmly and efficiently. But I hadn't really realised just how important being able to do that was until I came to this school and I met children with walls about 20 million metres high, who just needed someone to give them some time, give them some patience, and slowly try to break those walls down. So that was one of my kind of main goals going into this placement. So I started out and I was in the group 3, which was sort of the older class, and it would be the class that would kind of be the furthest along their journey. I suppose it was sort of a way of easing me into the whole experience, but also that this particular teacher had no SNA in the classroom and needed all the help that she could get. So I was happy to fill in, in that sort of aspect. One child in particular, I found that I managed to form a really strong relationship with, which lasted up to my final days and would probably last beyond that should I go back. And this particular child, when I first met him, he was sitting in the back of the classroom, he was making a puzzle and he didn't want anything to do with me. So I greeted all the kids as they came into the classroom. I said, hi, my name is Jackie, I'm going to be here with you for the next couple of weeks. It's lovely to meet you. And I kind of introduced myself to each of the children separately so they knew who I was and what I was doing in the classroom, because I know for some of these kids, like, a change in routine could be kind of off-putting along with a new person coming in. So I just wanted to sort of let them know that I wanted to help them as much as I could in the space of the 10 weeks that I was planning on spending there. And this particular child wanted nothing to do with me from the get-go. He just didn't even acknowledge my existence, and that's fine. Of course, there's a stranger in your room. How else do you expect a child to react, So I decided that over time I wanted to try and sort of get to know him a little bit better, try to let him know that I was here to help him anyway if he needed it, and that I would be happy to help him at all if he needed any help. And every time I offered help, he said, no, I'm fine, I don't need it, I'm grand. That was fine. I left, and I never pushed it because I knew that it would almost be worse to push it. It was something that was going to take an awful lot of sort of time and patience, and I could tell that kind of from the get-go. But I was determined to sort of try and get through to this particular child. I don't know why exactly. I was so determined to try and get to know him and get through to him and form sort of a relationship. I don't know. I think I just felt like he needed someone to try and get through to him, which I ended up realizing that no one really had properly gotten through to him, according to what the principal had told me. I was determined to change that. I really wanted to, get to know him. And I knew that I was going to be leaving, but I thought that maybe I could help him in some way, even for a short space of time. So every day I'd offer to play with him. He didn't mind. He liked having so much to play with. And then eventually, after a couple of times of me, coming over, offering to play, making small talk, making conversation, just kind of easing him into him, letting him know that I was someone that he could trust, someone that he could talk to if he had any problems, that I was here to help him, and just making sure that he knew that, and trying to sort of explain that to him as best that I could. And sometimes that it could be, and I thought, communication was just saying what's going on, but it's an awful lot more than that. Like, I found here that it was a mix of a number of things. It was a mix of the way that I approached him that first day. It was a mix of the tone, my voice. It was a mix of me controlling if I was feeling frustrated for whatever reason and just not letting it show through in my voice. It was about my body language, how I approached, whether I was tentative or if I was open. And usually I just kind of let the child make the first move, because a lot of these kids, they don't like contact. They don't like a pat on the shoulder. you know, sometimes all they want is a high five, you know. So I started off with that, just the high five for doing, if you did a good job at work, high five, well done, I'm really happy that you did that, it makes me delighted to see you doing so well. One of the things that this child wasn't doing was his homework. He would come in every day without fail, just not having it done. And he never really explained why. He just said, I just don't think he was bothered. He just didn't see the point. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and get him to do his homework, even for a day, to start with. It's better than nothing, you know. So I approached him and I said, hey, you know, I've noticed that you haven't really been doing your homework. Is there a reason for that? And he just said, no, just don't feel like it. And I said, well, okay, but you do realise, you know, that that if you don't do your homework, you won't be able to get into football. And he was like, yeah, I know, don't care. And I was like, well, that's okay. You don't have to care, you know, it's up to you whether you care or not. And it's up to you whether you do your homework or not. I'm not going to make you, I'm not here to tell you to do it. I just wanted to understand why you weren't doing it, you know. And that if there was a reason why you weren't doing it, that I would try and help you if it meant that you'd be able to, you know, get your homework done every evening, you know. And he said, no, there's no issue, I just not bothered. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to push you on this. And one of the things that I learned about approaching a child with oppositional defiance was that saying, you have to do your homework or you won't be able to go outside, was pointless, which is the way I kind of approached it the first times, and I used those particular words. And then after a while I realised that that's not the best way to approach it, and I found that if I said, what actually worked was when I said, I walked up to him and I said, you know, I would really love to see you going out to football, but the only way you'd be able to do that is if you do your homework. And doing your homework means that you're going to get outside for half an hour, you're going to get a bit of fresh air. I just think it's a really good idea, just for, you know, 20 minutes of work. But, you know, it's up to you. It's your homework and it's your choice and it's your football time. So if you'd like to go out and do football, then you're the only one who can do your homework for you. I can't make you do your homework. But I can just say that I would love to see you being able to get out for football. And I don't know what it was about, like, the way that I phrased that, but it seemed to sort of resonate with him a little bit, because the next day he came into me and he was, you know, he was all bright and bubbly and giddy, and he came over to me and he was like, guess what, teacher, guess what? And I was like, what is it? What's wrong? Like, what's going on? And he was like, I did my homework. And for me, like, that was like a huge, huge victory. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to hear that. Your teacher's going to be delighted to see you, you know, doing your homework and going outside to play football with the rest of your class. That's fantastic. And, you know, he was delighted with himself. And he was in such a good mood for the rest of the day. And then the next day came and he did the same thing. He was like, I did my homework. And again, I said, that's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that. And every time he came in to tell me he'd done his homework, I reacted in that same way. And I don't know if it was the way that I reacted, or sort of like if that positive reinforcement in the way that I said that is what kind of motivated him to start doing his homework, because every day from that day he did his homework. And then when he went home for Christmas, he came in, and I wasn't in the class anymore, you know, I was in a different part of the school. And he came in and I was talking to him and I was like, and how's the homework been going? And he just said, I'm not doing it. And I remember just feeling like, oh no, here we go again. We're back to square one. Am I going to have to try and encourage him to do it again? Am I going to have to go through all of this again? And I was like, oh, why not? You know, you were so good. You were doing it every day before Christmas. And he looked at me and he was like, that was your Christmas present? So I figured that maybe what was motivating him was, you know, I'd said that it would really make me happy if he'd do it. So what I had to try and do then was encourage him, you know, to do it for himself and not for me. But I decided, you know what, I'll start off trying to get him to do it for me. You know, if that's what's getting him to do it, then I'll start off that way and kind of try and work it over and phrase it in a way that made him realise that in reality, doing his homework was really helping him. Even though I was so happy to see him do it, it was for him that he was doing it, it wasn't for me. So I said, you know, oh, well, would you like to give me an early birthday present and start doing it again? And then the next day he came in with his homework done. And I was sort of talking to him about it, you know, and I was saying, you know, I know that you're doing it because it makes me so very happy, you know, and I'm always delighted to see you've done your homework and that you're able to go out for your full football time. It makes me so happy to see you doing that, you know, but you have to do it for yourself. I said, think about what you feel like when you're outside playing football. And I said, how do you feel when you're outside playing football? And he was like, happy. And I said, and what do you feel like when you're kept inside because you haven't done your homework? And he kind of looked at me, and he was sort of mulling it over in his head, and he was sort of like, not so happy. Which is fair enough, you know. So I just sort of smiled at him and I said, so remember that feeling of happiness and how happy it makes you feel when you go outside to play football, and link that to your homework. And remember that doing your homework is what helps you feel that happy, what gives you the option to be able to go outside and play football. And he did it every day from then on, never missed a day. And of course he'd still come up to tell me that he'd done it, but it was still like, I feel like it was me communicating to him that it was up to him how he felt, and helping him by communicating effectively and telling him, how do you feel when you do this? Do you want to feel that way again? Think about what caused you to feel that way, whether it be a bad emotion or a good emotion. Think about what you did that caused that, and kind of work around that. So that's where I felt the communication competency came in really handy. But I'll talk more about kind of the relationship sort of in my applied theory sort of part of it. So.